All right, guys, bang, bang. I've got Reid here. Super excited to talk about memes and making money on the internet. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
For sure. Let's jump right into your background, kind of help everyone understand just who the hell is Reid? What did you do before you got into the media game?
I did not come from the meme world or the media world. I guess the meme world was like always around, but not really popular with people. And I was still taking classes in college when I got into Instagram, basically, and the meme Illuminati. I started an account called ShitheadSteve and started it as a way to like troll my friends in the beginning. And then it turned into like, oh, wait, I'm gaining followers. And then I started reposting stuff. And this is around the time that like Fuck Jerry and Fat Jewish had like 100,000 followers. And I just saw them as like, whoa, that's insane. And I started making original content. That's kind of what locked me in and helped grow my business.
Got it. And so when you started doing that, I'm assuming you had no, idea you were going to start a media company. You had no idea that you were going to kind of do any of this. It was literally just like screwing around with your friends. But at what point did you end up deciding like, oh, wait a second, like this could be a business and I should actually like go do this rather than just, be the person behind ShitheadSteve on the internet?
Yeah. So like I started the account thinking it was a business idea. Like my friends thought I was so dumb, and so did my parents. They're like, get out of our basement. But I saw it as like a way to sell ads in the beginning, because I saw I was kind of following Gary Vaynerchuk. Just he was an interesting guy, and he got me into like the social media thing. And so it was kind of like a leap of faith with the advertisement stuff. And then I started selling like shirts, and I realized that it was more than just advertisements, but that's basically like why I started it.
Got it. And when you did jump, kind of into, okay, I want to build this business, did you think early on about protecting the IP and kind of really think of it as more as like a franchise, or was it literally just get eyeballs onto an account, sell ads, and kind of we'll figure it out from there?
Yeah. So there's some other people in the meme space that had a few different pages. After I had been running ShitheadSteve for about a year and I only had one page, and I was like, wait, I could just replicate this. And then that was when it was kind of like, oh, I'm creating all these new brands, like very organically, completely naturally. And it was just like, I made Trash Can Paul, which is like a weirder version of ShitheadSteve. And there's all these niche areas where I could like create an account. And then there's like a type of content that I could source or create for that brand. So that we did that with like AnimalsDoingThings and GamersDoingThings. And then Derek, my co-founder, he had a video page called Drunk People Doing Things, and it was starting to really take off. And a now advisor and partner to the business, Max, one of my good friends, he was like, you need to get into video. And so I partnered up with Derek. I mean, we started like a media conglomerate kind of thing for memes originally. And now it's like expanded bigger than memes. We have an original show called All Gas No Breaks, but it all started with memes. And all of our stuff starts on Instagram.
Got it. And so where does the name ShitheadSteve come from? Trash Can Paul? Like, these are great names. And I think there's an entire generation of people who are like, yeah, duh. Like, that's the account I follow on the internet. But somebody came up with it. It's like, where'd that come from?
Just like, I was like hungover one day on my friend's couch, and we were coming up with like stupid names to call each other, and ShitheadSteve and Trash Can Paul. I like came up with those randomly. And then I was like, okay, what should the profile picture be? When I was like, wait, I should start an account and call it ShitheadSteve. And the username was available, which I thought was crazy. And I just like made it Squints from The Sandlot, because that was like a movie I loved. And it was just like an iconic, nostalgic character from our generation. So that was kind of like, it was like a random name, and then also somewhat of a random picture. There's like solo cup idea. And I was like, I'll just do something iconic, that's like more me. And that was it. And I kind of look like him, I guess, a little bit. So people
I love that. So talk a little bit about, you go from creating one meme page to kind of 2, 3, and grow from there. I'm assuming it gets easier because you've got the one account to kind of leverage, but how did you think about really moving the audience you originally built on the ShitheadSteve account between all the other accounts and kind of grow them all together?
Yeah. So when I just had ShitheadSteve and I was like, I had like 20,000 followers, we were all talking with, like, I was talking to Derek. We weren't teamed up yet. And there's all these other memers out there. And we started a group chat. And basically, I made a spreadsheet of like each account. And each day was a different person's day. And we would like all collectively shout out that account. So like, there was female skewed audience pages on there. There was all these different types of pages where there's some audience overlap, but not much. And then we would just kind of like do a shout rotation, and it really blew us up. And then, so we took that same concept from, when I just had one account, and we were just growing each other for fun, just sharing the love of the audiences, liking memes. And so we did that with the different brands that we owned down the road.
Got it. And it's really interesting to me how the meme culture, just an entire generation gravitated towards it. Like, why is that, right? Like, what is it so special about the memes? Is it that they're shareable, that they're funny? Like you are an expert in memes, I guess. So just like, why does this work?
I think it's a mix of like, memes are a form of like just super shareable ideas. And it's just like, people can, they really resonate with a lot of people at once. And it's like something everyone can kind of like come together on. And like, you see the likes going up, you see your friends commenting or, tagging their friends or liking it or whatever, or your friend shares it in a group chat. It's just like something that it's either like nostalgic, which makes it shareable, or it's like really hilarious and that makes it shareable, or relatable, which is usually funny as well. But I think it's just the easiest and quickest way to share funny stuff with a friend. It's like the cartoons that are in the paper, except it's on your phone and you can easily send it. And that goes with more than just memes. It's like all the TikTok content you see, all the, with our show All Gas No Breaks, it's pretty memeified in terms of the editing of the video and like how it's like quick, and it caters to the zero attention span followers, like myself included. I have no attention span, so I like stuff that I'm looking at on my phone to be really funny, like quick, so I don't have to keep staring at my phone, I guess. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of like how I see them.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And talk a little bit just about, once you had a couple of accounts, they were growing and they were kind of very meme centric. How did you end up building a whole business behind this, right? Like what were the steps you actually took to build the media company?
Yeah, started with just like looking at each of the accounts' content and like what common themes are always coming up. That gives you a lot of clues from an e-commerce standpoint. Like, okay, Epstein didn't kill himself is trending. So maybe we could make an ugly Christmas sweater and just put that phrase on there and make it look funny or look good, but it's also funny. And so we did that, around Christmas holidays. And like, that's really, really the main thing for e-commerce for us, is looking at the content trends and like the engagement. Within the first 3 minutes of posting something, we'll know if it's the new thing. Like if it's the new meme, like we'll know within 3 minutes. As you know, on Twitter, you'll see your engagement start to spike on, quicker than normal tweets or whatever. I don't know Twitter. We have like 0 followers on Twitter, but Instagram is like, similar, I feel like, in the way that you are kind of tracking that. But yeah, that's how we realized for e-commerce, that was like an easy way for us to make money there. Advertisements, for each brand has its own perfect brand partner, like MiddleClassFancy is one of our accounts. Lee, the creator of it, he was talking about crispy boys like 5 years ago and like created this term, and Bud Light wanted to be attached to it. And so that was like a way to take IP that we've created and like marry it with Bud Light. And now Bud Light is a crispy boy. And that was part of the campaign we did with them. So yeah, it's kind of like we've been just growing as quickly as possible. And, in terms of followers and revenue, we're kind of like, in the beginning, we were just grabbing cash wherever we could and figuring out what was the most promising thing. And advertisements, merchandise, and, now like subscription with Patreon for All Gas No Breaks. Each brand has its own path to success. So whether it's Gamers Doing Things with Twitch, we have a talent, his name's Spencer. He's the host of the stream. We're doing tournaments. That's the path to success for gamers, and also merch and advertisements. But like All Gas No Breaks is Patreon, advertisements soon on the podcast, merchandise are big for that brand. So merchandise and advertisements are pretty consistent across the board, but there's different ways, for each one to be built out into its own business. Like ShitheadSteve is going to be, and already is, kind of like the Spencers of 2020 online, gag gifts, where it's a puzzle that looks like, a field of puppies hanging out. And then you open it, it's like a bunch of big dogs taking huge shits in a field. It's like a prank puzzle that we did around coronavirus. So that's just like an example of like a few different brands of ours that like take their own lives and like grow in their own ways.
Talk a little bit about All Gas No Breaks for those that don't know what is that?
So All Gas No Breaks is a show. We partnered up with Andrew Callaghan, who is the host. And he had a former thing he was doing in New Orleans where he would interview drunk people. And it was like amazing. And a lot of his content was getting shut down because it was so insane. And so he came to us and was like, would love to do a show with you guys. I'm a big fan of the meme pages. And we were like, yeah, this is amazing. Like this, we've been following your content for a while. And so we took our audience and basically supercharged the growth to the show. We partnered up, we bought them an RV. We sent them around the country, interviewing, tons of different people like flat earthers or, conspiracy theorist people, Talladega, just like really funny, like iconic American things, but also like underground American subcultures that you've never heard of that are ridiculous or really interesting. And so, yeah, it was just like us helping him out from a creative standpoint, and also growing the show and starting the Patreon and the merch business. And I think we're number 6 on Patreon now on the whole platform. So that's really cool. Like in a year, we did that. But that's basically what it is like Andrew's this like, he has this deadpan look on his face, and like he just lets people talk into a microphone, and it's hilarious. So definitely check it out.
And I think a lot of people understand advertising. They understand the merchandise business. You mentioned Patreon. Let's start there. What exactly is Patreon, and why is that working for you guys? I think you guys have over 16,000 people who have kind of supported you there.
Yeah. So it is exclusive and long form content. The Instagram is short clips, a minute long each, basically, that helps promote the YouTube. We also are on YouTube. So basically we take the longest and most raw footage, put it into the longest form we can on Patreon. And, any behind the scenes content we'll do on Patreon only. And then we'll take shorter clips of that, like a 10-minute version of it, or sometimes like 7 minutes at the shortest on YouTube. And then we take the really short stuff and put it on like Instagram and TikTok. And that's basically it. We have a Facebook page, but it's mostly Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. And those 3 help grow each other.
Everything you guys do is stuff that you own the IP, or this is stuff where people will come to you. You actually can kind of put, kind of gas on their fire and help somebody else grow.
Yeah. So we created the show. We hired him as the host, and he's a partner in the show with 2 of his best friends. So that's how we did All Gas, and that's how we operate for any other shows. We have a few other shows in the works, and that's going to be the same.
Got it. And talk a little bit about the importance of intellectual property. So I think a lot of kind of creators, they understand, hey, if I get a big audience, I can sell ads, maybe I can sell some merch. But that's pretty much where it ends, right? That's kind of the monetization strategy. You guys are thinking of this much more almost like Hollywood franchises, right? Where you kind of take that intellectual property and really leverage it for all of these different monetization channels. Where did that come from? And kind of talk through how you guys have done that successfully.
Yeah, so we kind of see ourselves as like a weird version of like Nickelodeon, or maybe it's like MTV. Like we want to create these shows and channels that each have their own universe, kind of like a Marvel also. There's different characters in the All Gas show, and Andrew's one of them. The RV is like a common theme, and there's all these like things we can play with and build out businesses on their own. We have, for ShitheadSteve, we have a board game that's going to be its own entity, but it's, born on ShitheadSteve, and we promote it through ShitheadSteve. And so like some of our accounts are really just marketing vehicles. Some of our accounts are actually their own brands that have their own IP. Like ShitheadSteve, is a lot of viral products and stuff like that. But like All Gas No Breaks is creating a lot more IP in its own right. But yeah, we just want to get as big as possible and just be an IP factory, kind of like a Disney / Marvel / whatever, and just keep. It's just like limitless in terms of how big it can get. Now that we're branching outside of just memes, I think having a good understanding of memes and comedy and like internet comedy specifically, it just helps so much with even like production of longer form stuff that's not just images. So we want to just keep expanding in that way.
Yeah. And it feels like you guys understand creating content. You understand internet culture, right? So we talked about the memes. Talk about the jorts, maybe. I think people find that story hilarious.
Yeah. So we were just like hanging out in the office back when people had offices like a year ago. And we were like talking about jorts or something, or maybe cargo shorts, just like really memeable things. And we were like, we should make a jorts bathing suit where it looks like jorts and it's not. And so literally like a few days later, we had them made, and it was like sublimated bathing suit basically that really looked like jorts. And a guy that works for us, we were like, hey, you want to go to my pool across the street and take a picture? And we literally just like walked across the street, took a picture with our iPhone. That was the shoot. It cost us $0. And then, we sold like a ton of those. It's really funny.
And so when you guys have a situation like that, right, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I've had this crazy idea, but I don't actually execute. How do you go from, oh, it'd be funny to make a swimsuit that looks like jorts, to 4 or 5 days later, you actually have the jorts and it's like, let's take the photo and let's launch it. Like where does that propensity for action come from? And like, what would maybe your advice be to other people who have the ideas, but they get blocked from actually going out and executing it?
Yeah, definitely just take the path of least resistance, especially with new ideas. Like with us, the reason we're valuable is because we have an audience of 60 million followers. We can test products for free, basically. And on top of that, we pretty much lined up the different partners that could do the shit that we're not good at. Like we're a media company. We're good at being funny, making the content around products and stuff. So we, outsourced a sublimation partner who could just do it really quick and send us a sample, at no cost to us. And then we basically did a pre-sale. And every time someone bought one, we would just place an order. So we just did it that way. It's kind of like an on-demand model, but more of like a pre-sale and fulfill all orders and then cut it off, So that's kind of how we did that. But yeah, just like before that, I made this easy button that was a Trump button. It's like a wall button is what it was called. It was a meme where, anything that pissed Trump off, he would just hit the wall button and like all his problems would go away, because the, build the wall thing was like a meme. And so what I did was I like went on Alibaba and placed an order for like a few thousand of these easy buttons that I turned into the meme and sold out of them. And I mean, it was like such a pain having to go through that whole process alone when it was just me running ShitheadSteve. So now that we have partners that can do that stuff, I will absolutely, let them handle it and take a slightly smaller margin. So I guess that is what I would suggest. Like, definitely use all the resources you can. Use the internet and Upwork. Like, to build, you can do anything now wherever you are as long as you have Wi-Fi, pretty much. So.
Absolutely. How did you go about finding employees and kind of building out the team, right? There's so many people who think they're funny on the internet, but they're not. There's so many people who are creating content that sucks. Like, how do you actually find the right people who can either run an account, can kind of help with the e-commerce products? And it's not just you, kind of micromanaging, but actually finding people who can kind of make your life easier, but still be effective and grow the business.
For sure. So creatively, those people already were like pretty much our good friends on the internet. After years of growing in the meme space, we looked at who was growing, just as fast or faster or whatever. And we liked their content. We were just like, hey, do you want to come work with us? And, we acquired MiddleClassFancy, DoggosDoingThings, a few others, and brought the creators on full time to help us build this. They have a piece of doing things, and it was a cool and smart, like, really glad we did this because they just get it. They don't need any training or anything. They're just doing what they're already good at, and we just help amplify their brands. And then what was the other question? I'm blanking.
In terms of like the non-content employees, how do you kind of find the right people there?
Yeah. So Max, advisor and partner to the business, he's helped out early on, helping put the pieces together for, our financial arm. We have like a company that is a small partner of the business also that does all of our finances, like anything at the company. And they're awesome. They manage a lot of like really like Hollywood Illuminati people's money, and they're like really helpful. In terms of like sales, I brought on Todd Anderman from Group 9. He's been amazing. I just hit him up on LinkedIn. Like, I saw that he worked at another media company called Group 9. And I was like, I looked into it. He seemed awesome. And we ended up just, hiring him as the president a year ago. So I used a lot of like social media, LinkedIn, and networking for sure. And Todd's been really helpful finding more people for the sales team and stuff like that. And also just across the board, helping us out with hiring. Some project managers came from other companies that I worked directly with them when I was like running ShitheadSteve. There's a company called Herb, which is like a weed themed page on Facebook that like I would share their content and get paid for it basically. And the point person there, we brought her on and she's been awesome. Her name's Amanda. But it's a lot of networking, online searches, LinkedIn, and social media, I guess.
Do you guys have aspirations to get outside of just e-commerce from like a selling things to people, right? So you talked about, you got the advertising, e-commerce makes sense. You've got Patreon. Will you eventually get into whether it's building hardware products or building software products, actually try to kind of get into, the higher margin, more scalable type things that seem to be attractive to some creators?
Yeah, we're thinking about doing we're thinking about creating a technology that's kind of like taking everything we know in our meme brains and like the internet trends side of things and turning it into a data type oriented technology that brands can use and, basically just help companies or brands or whoever understand what is trending or like, we do a lot of advertising campaigns with memes and integrating and like organically rather than like paying a platform. So that's definitely one thing we're thinking of. In terms of hardware, I can't really think of anything there. We're definitely wanting to do like live events and we're just trying to build businesses off the platform overall. And we see commerce as part of that, like building brands, whether it's a beverage or a card game. We want to build things that like would outlive the platforms and grow on their own.
Got it. In terms of kind of scaling this out, it feels like you guys have done a really good job using that initial traction with ShitheadSteve on Instagram, build out other Instagram accounts, and then kind of build the business from there. If you did not have any of this, right, like there's no accounts and you're starting today, what platform would you look at and why that platform?
I think Instagram's still great. It depends on what you're making. Like if you're creating video content and it's, you can do a 10-minute episode, I would say YouTube. But I think Instagram's a great place to get discovered with Reels. There's IGTV and there's, the regular posts in the feed. But yeah, I don't know. It depends on what you're doing. Like if you're an influencer, it might be something like Reels and TikTok at the same time. Instagram's still great though. I think probably Instagram.
Talk to me about monetization in terms of how do you guys think about selling the advertising? Is it per CPM? Is it per post? Is it maybe monthly? Like how do you think about that? And for those people who aspire to be creators, whether it's under their own name or under kind of these account brands, how should they think about early days monetization versus late stage monetization once they're big?
Yeah. It's kind of a tough question. Can you repeat the last part?
So talk just about how you guys monetize it. Do you charge by CPMs or some other model? And then in terms of, did that change over time, right? When you were starting out, did you guys monetize, one way and then over time it kind of evolved something else?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it was literally like, what's your budget? And they'd say, like 10 grand. We're like, okay, well, we need 20 grand or whatever. Like it was super scrappy in the beginning. It was just like us hustling ads. Like we used to do ads for just like the most hilarious, you've never heard of them, like drop shipping companies and stuff in the very beginning. But now, and in the past 3 years, it's been CPM based. So it's understood by agencies and brands like across the board because it's kind of how they operate anyways. So impressions, with a CPM.
Got it. And in terms of building out these kind of IP or brand type accounts, do you guys kind of have triggers in your mind? So, hey, when we get started, we know we're going to have 0 followers. We can get to 50,000 followers with a couple of mentions on our other accounts. That's when we'll start doing ads. Then once we get to 100 or 250,000, then that's when we'll go ahead and do e-commerce. Like, is there some kind of framework you use, or is it literally case by case each time?
Yeah, it's case by case, and it's very like, we'll see what happens. Like we want to put stuff out and see if it gets traction. We're not going to try to force a brand that no one cares about. Like we'll start it, we'll run it for a few months, and then if it just doesn't pick up steam and people aren't converting, then it's like, whatever, on to the next. So, and we also don't we have a lot of accounts that are like, a few 100,000 followers, and we just want to keep growing them to the 1 million follower mark or more before we start doing ads. Definitely case by case though, like all gas, no brakes is different. We only want to put ads in there that are really, across the board is like this, but for all gas, it's a little harder to integrate ads in the right way. So we're thinking podcast and also just it's sponsoring a whole series of episodes by a really funny brand, whether it's like Monster Energy or for a Florida Man episode or whatever it is.
Got it. And then talk to me about your day-to-day, kind of what you focus on, right? Are you still creative and posting on ShitheadSteve and a bunch of accounts and kind of, deep in the meme culture, or are you doing other things to kind of build the business on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So we're all wearing like a million hats. I still will occasionally find something or think of something and make a meme and just post it because I'm logged into my accounts that I would post to. But yeah, so I'm the CEO. I'm doing a lot of stuff on the commerce side. That's what I'm focusing on. But I'm also helping out on ad stuff when I can. And across the board, I'm not doing everything anymore, which is great, but I'm still doing a lot of stuff. And it's mainly e-commerce, creative, a lot of stuff on all gas, no brakes, just with, picking different events, podcast guests. We're actually launching something really big I can't talk about, but working on that. And so a lot of stuff.
I love it. What's the one thing you wish that you knew when you got started?
I wish, well, part of me wishes that I didn't go so wide with so many accounts. Just honestly, because it's like, okay, now like they're all amazing accounts. So it's not a bad problem. It's like, we just have to hire the correct people for each one to build it out into its path to success or whatever. But I wish I would have doubled down on the ones that were working more so than I did. But I mean, I did, so it's not really a regret. I wish I hired Todd earlier. I mean, I guess that's it, because I had to do a lot of sales stuff for a while, and it was just like really tough, doing that plus e-commerce plus actually running the pages. I guess I wish I hired faster. I wish I knew that I could hire faster without worrying about it, because it was so new to me. I was like, I wanted to be very careful about how I grew, and we still are, but it was like, how aggressive should I get, I guess?
Yeah, I feel like that's a fairly common thing for people, right? Is like, because if you mess it up, you'd be saying the exact opposite thing, right? Yeah. Which is like, I wish I'd hired slower.
Yeah. And I also didn't know the meme space was like as big as it, like, I didn't think it would get as big as it is, but now I'm realizing, I had this realization a while ago. It's like memes are just a different form of content, and a lot of stuff's memeified. That's not just a picture with text over it. So it's really just the future of entertainment on social media.
Absolutely. How should companies think about using memes and GIFs and kind of all of these like new multimedia type communication for their everyday kind of marketing, right? So it's one thing if you're posting on ShitheadSteve to use memes and things like that, but there's plenty of people out there who say, hey, I run Burger King social media, or, I run whatever company social media. Should I be using memes, or should I just kind of keep it cool and, corporate and just stick to that?
Yeah, I think you're going to see more and more corporate, like big companies like Burger King, and I think we're actually potentially doing something with them down the road. But like Burger King, McDonald's, all these like QSR companies are starting to adopt meme stuff. And Wendy's on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen, is like completely a meme. I don't think you have to go that hard. It's up to whoever is running the brand. Like if they think it should go full meme, like Slim Jim or Wendy's. We're running an account called Fruit Bowls right now for Dole, and it's hilarious. It's like a Slim Jim, but for Fruit Bowls. I think there's ways to not necessarily post a lot of memes or any memes on your company's account on Instagram or whatever, but you can work with people like us to integrate your messaging or whatever it is that you want to get out there in a organic and natural way. So it shows up in people's feeds and they're not pissed off. It's like, oh, that's actually a funny piece of content. And then, oh, by the way, it's an ad. It's not in your face like when an ad hits that's paid and you're like, or it's like on TV, you just immediately whip out your phone. So it's a way to get in front of, millennials without pissing them off. And they're just like, they're not thinking you're cheesy necessarily. They think you're funny, or whatever they're getting across is getting across.
Got it.
So it's working with people like us, not necessarily having to post that on their own page.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Any words of advice for the people who are running accounts right now, who are kind of more creators, but aspire to be in the position you are, that have kind of a full-fledged business around this?
Any advice to them? Yeah, I mean, if you're running like a meme account, just be creative and original. That's what's going to stand out these days, for sure. If you're creating, anything, like if it's something like interviews, just keep in mind that people have very short attention spans. So if you have some long intro, people don't care about intros. Like I've always hated intros. I think, for like certain YouTube channels and stuff, it makes sense, but I think you should just get straight to the point, because people don't have a lot of time, or, they don't want to stare at their phone for too long. So just keep that in mind whenever you're making content. you want to get the thing started as soon as people see it.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I asked the same 2 questions to everybody, and then you'll get to ask me one to wrap it up. The first is, what is the most important book that you've ever read?
0 to 1 by Peter Thiel.
Why that one?
It's just such a straight shooting book. It's like, he's done it and this is how you do it. And it's like, it's really, really informative and super smart. Like, that guy's a genius. I'd ask the same question to you.
I cheated because I already know this question, and I answer with the same 3 books, which is kind of breaking the rules as well. But I always say Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon, and Think and Grow Rich. And I'd be when did you read 0 to 1? Like how old were you?
A year ago.
Okay. So I read those 3 books when I was like 20, 21 years old, which, like, from a finance standpoint, like, that's a good time to read and kind of build habits and change the way you think about money, et cetera. When you're building a business, right? It's probably a good book to read at 0 to 1. And so I think a lot about, like, the book itself. Sure, it's high quality for most suggestions, but it's also like, when did the person read it? Because the timing is super important for what that impact was on them, right?
Yeah. Another question. How did you, so you said you got started on Twitter. What was the tweet or the thing that made it pop? Was there any, like, one time where you're like, that's it? Or maybe a tweet?
I had already worked, I used to run the growth team for Facebook pages. And so I knew how the algorithms worked. I'd helped a bunch of people, probably a lot of, we probably have a ton of mutual friends in terms of these meme accounts or brand accounts. And everyone had started on either Instagram, or maybe there was a couple people maybe on Twitter. They were trying to figure out Facebook, right? They were trying to figure out, like, these other platforms where they hadn't started. And so naturally I would just get introduced to them, and, like, the conversations would be hilarious. Or, like, the Fuck Jerry guys were a great example. They were like, so, like, we have all these memes and, like, it's working on Instagram. Like, how do we, like, make Facebook work? And you're just like, okay, like, you guys should be teaching us things, right? You use the platform better than pretty much anyone. And so I had seen it over and over and over again, just like what worked, what didn't work. And in 2017, I just realized, like, I'd never done it for myself. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? And at the time, it was very clear that Twitter was a much better place to do this type of stuff. Like, if you're going to go after business and finance, and that it's harder, to kind of do it. Yeah, and it's also harder to, like, do it under your own name when it's on an Instagram or whatever. Yeah. So I think that a lot of it came down to, like, okay, I don't know exactly why this is going to be valuable, but I do know having an audience will be valuable in the future. So, like, let's get started. And then, you kind of tweet, and then you just quickly, like, start to, like, let the audience say, like, hey, we want more of this and less of, like, that other stuff. And there was a time in 2017, like Q4, I could literally just tweet the word Bitcoin and the shit would just go, viral. And you're just, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, right now you can literally just tweet, what's it, Portnoy, right? Like, Dave keeps just tweeting, like, stocks only go up, and it just explodes. So it's like, I think your point about, like, you'll know what content works and what doesn't work, but based on the audience reaction, like, that's true on every platform, right? It's not just an Instagram thing. It's kind of anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Second question is more fun. Aliens, believer or non-believer?
It's 100% real.
Why do you think that? I agree, but why do you think that? Because
they just have to exist. I've watched way too many Joe Rogan podcasts to not believe in them. So
I'm there with you. Bob Lazar, I'm assuming you saw that one.
That's the one that was really like, well, okay, they are real. And then there was also the government thing. The government's, like, when coronavirus was the worst or some crazy shit was happening this year, it's like all a blur at this point. But, like, they said, yeah, aliens are real pretty much. Like, there's an alien aircraft in the world, and it's definitely from aliens. Is pretty much what they said. And everyone's like, yeah, but coronavirus, like, no one cared. So I was the one guy who's like, they're real.
Yeah. I still am shocked. Like, I get the fact that, like, the videos had already leaked on Reddit and stuff, right? I get the fact that, like, they're UFOs, they're not aliens, like all of it. I'm with you though. I'm like, wait, time out. You're telling me that the US government is publicly releasing videos being like, we don't know what the hell this is flying around. And you and I can look with our bare eyes and see something that we don't understand, explain, never seen before. Like, maybe it's something weird, but I'm with you in that should have been a bigger deal than it probably people made it to be.
Yeah, big believer. There's an August episode about Alien Con. It's pretty good.
All right, I'm gonna have to go look that one up for sure. You get to ask me one question to finish up. What do you got for me?
I guess you're probably comfortable sharing. I was just wondering, like, what's the biggest part of your business? And if you don't want to answer, it's all good. We can talk about something else.
No, podcasts by far. In terms of, I've tested a lot of stuff, like sounds very similar, and I didn't really take the business seriously. Like, actually sounds very similar to your story of like, at first it was kind of like, oh, okay, like I'm doing this thing. And like, oh wait, the audience is like pretty big. And it's like, oh wait, the audience is like really big now. And then it was like, maybe I should like try another platform, and I should like try another platform. And then like, you realize like, oh, the audience will like move with me, and okay, like maybe there's something here. And I've just been shocked in terms of podcast monetization. Some of it's just, it's finance. So there's just a lot of disposable income, kind of the perfect demographic. All these fintech companies have gotten just absolutely overwhelmed with like venture funding. And frankly, I think some of them like don't know what to do with it all. So it's kind of, you got like all these things that work in favor there. But also I've been pretty shocked. Like I've got, I don't know if you know what a Substack is. It's like a paid newsletter type thing. And so basically every morning I wake up, I write a email, and it's just like my analysis on whatever I think is interesting in business, finance, Bitcoin, whatever. But I send it 5 days a week. If you are on the free email list, you get it once a week. If you pay $10 a month or $50 a year, you get it all 5 days a week. And, these guys were like, hey, you should try this. And I was like, who the hell's going to pay? Right. And next thing you know, I think it's like the number 10 or 11th largest one on their site. And you start to realize it's like very similar, like the Patreon stuff, right? Like people, if it's good content, I think that they are willing to support the people who create it. And so it's like pretty interesting when you start to unpack, you can create content, you can do ad supported, you could do kind of, audience supported, you could do e-commerce. Like there's so many monetization channels. But for me, it all comes back to the one area that I think you guys have done a great job where other people haven't, is just the intellectual property, right? I'm shocked at how many people haven't, they have large audiences, but they don't use it.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, another thing early on that we had to do was build like a video submission portal to play defense, basically, and also be able to license out videos. But people submit a ton of videos to us, and we had to get buttoned up pretty hard on the meme pages and the video pages. So I feel you.
Absolutely. Where can people find you on the internet, Reid, or find more about Doing Things Media?
Go to my Instagram is Reid Doing Things, but I just post shit about my dog or like surfing or something. I'm on LinkedIn, Reid Hailey, ReidHailey. I guess that's probably the best place for this, LinkedIn.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, thank you so much for doing this. You guys have built a very interesting and awesome company. So we'll have to do this again in the future.
Yeah, thanks.